Okay. Hi, Flawsome moms. So glad you are here and in this community. And I have to apologize, embracing the Flawsome nature of this group. I'm going to go ahead and admit that we have not yet figured out the behind the scenes digital aspect of this yet, clearly, because one of our team members set up the Zoom room and there's a pass, shouldn't have a passcode required, but it does, and I can't get in. So I thought I would just come on here at the very least. I would record our first Flawsome Connection call and talk about, like I suggested, talk about some meal planning tips, menu planning tips, and we'll at least keep that in the community while we figure out all of the other aspects behind the scenes. And if I get any kind of pop up here, I'll hop over there and we'll get this figured out and get this sorted out. But in the spirit of making mistakes and moving forward, we're going to do this anyway. So, I wanted to talk a little bit today about meal planning, and mainly because for me, it has been and has become something that really helps to bring me some peace. If you have seen it all on my personal blog at my website, kayaduffy.com, I talked recently about discovering your cooking personality. I was listening to a podcast the other day, out walking the dog one morning, and they were talking about how, cooking can be a chore many times, and it's not super enjoyable. And in this podcast, they were talking about ways to bring joy back, to find joy again in the cooking, in the process of cooking and preparing meals. And one of the ways that you can do that is to rediscover or discover for the first time your cooking personality. And so I started really thinking about this and thinking about myself and my cooking personality. And it started with me just thinking about my personality. What is it that I like to do? What kind of person am I? What brings me peace? And how can I then take that learning and that information and apply it to the process of cooking and mealtime, which, when the kids were little, it was difficult for one reason or another. And now that they're older, and I have one in high school and two in middle school, and although they haven't started yet, school activities are about to start. My husband and I both work full time. We also live in a dorm, and we have college students that we do things with, which is a whole other video some other time. Dinner time is crazy, right? It can be. And so for very different reasons, having a plan, it's critical for me. And it also, I feel more calm when I have a plan. I am a planner and I love making a to-do list. This is my notebook with my to-do list, and every day it gets rewritten, and I will put things on my to-do list that I have done that weren't on there so I can cross them off. I mean, that is the kind of person I am. So for me, meal planning is critical to feeling calm at a time that is otherwise crazy. Um, when my kids were little, honestly, there was also an element of control. It really mattered to me that my kids developed a different relationship with food than I had. And as part of that, I worked really hard in thinking about what I was going to serve them, what that would look like. And I wanted everybody in my family to know what was going on. And in my family, my husband, but also babysitters or nannies, or if my parents were in town, I wanted everybody to know this is what we're having for lunch and dinner. And I wanted to make sure that it included giving my kids, different versions of the same food over time so that became something they were familiar with. And I was exposing them to lots of different foods, and I didn't want to waste food. So I looked for ways to reuse food throughout the week, or to cook in batches and reuse things throughout the week. So there truly was an element of control in my meal planning. And I used to print out every week, print out a piece of paper and just kind of write it. Well, as I evolved, I got so serious about this that I actually created a meal planner, and I started selling it on Kazingo because this mattered so much to me, and the process that I go through has evolved so much. And so I wanted to talk about what some of those things are with you today that I do that I find useful. The last thing I want to say and I want to give you permission to do this. If you are not a person who likes to plan, and if meal planning sounds like it would just stress you out, or you don't have any interest or time, and you know that that is not your personality, you are not a planner, you are spontaneous, you want to get home at the end of the day and look in your fridge, in your pantry, and say, okay, this is what I feel like and this is what we're going to do, then you have permission to ignore me entirely. Do not try to make meal planning your thing if planning is not your thing. It will not feel right. It will not be something that you can implement in the long run. You will feel more stress at mealtime if you try to do something that does not fit with your personality. So I am giving you full permission right now to simply say, no, thank you. And guess what? You can have the next 15 minutes back of your time. But if you are a meal planner, or you want to try meal planning to see if it does help make dinner times a little less crazy, here are some of my suggestions for you. And again, they are in this book. I have these meal planning tips written out. The first thing that I like to do when I know we are coming up on shopping time, and in our house, given our schedules, shopping happens on the weekend. In part because when it is open and available, I really like to shop at our local farmers market. It's very close to me, and I can get things that are in season, and that helps me in a lot of different ways, but I really like shopping there. So we do our grocery shop on the weekend. So Thursday, Friday, I will start to look at what is in our refrigerator and what is in our pantry, and I will try to eat up leftovers. Cooking, grocery shopping and bringing home food in an empty refrigerator is so reassuring to me. And so that is the first tip that I have for you is before you even begin thinking about what you're going to do for that week, think about what you can do to clean out your refrigerator. And again, for me, that actually means eating leftovers. It also means, tip number 2, physically cleaning out my fridge a little bit. I will take out old food. I will clean out the veggie drawer where that cucumber has gotten a little bit rotten, and I will do a quick wipe down again, because then I know what I have space for. I have had time to take stock of what is in my refrigerator, and I know that when I'm bringing food in, it's going to be fresh food that I can eat for the week. So eat up leftovers and physically give your fridge a little wipe out. The next thing I do before I physically sit down to make my meal plan is while I'm cleaning out the fridge and eating leftovers, I look at what I have that's fresh in the refrigerator, that head of cauliflower that I never ate last week, or, the cabbage that's still sitting in there, or all of the mustards, or whatever is in the refrigerator. I take stock of what that is so that I know what I have, and I am not buying more of those things, and that I can use those things in meal planning for the upcoming week. And then I do that same thing in the pantry. I don't need to be buying more boxes of pasta just to have 17 boxes of pasta. Just because I have the space to store it doesn't mean that I need it. And so I try to be really receptive and responsive to what I have on hand that needs to be eaten and put into the week's upcoming meal plan, as well as making sure I know what kinds of pantry staples we might be out of and what kinds of pantry staples I can skip purchasing this week. We write about this a lot on the newsletter, the Weekly Parent that I write. Grocery prices are insane right now. And so I want to do everything I can to minimize how much extra I'm spending on food. So before I even do my meal planning, eat leftovers, physically clean out your fridge, take stock of all the fresh food you have in your refrigerator, wherever else you store it. Don't forget about your freezer, and take stock of your pantry so you know what kind of dry items or pantry staples you may or may not need. Okay, all of that is what I do in preparation for actually sitting down and making a meal plan. In part, so I've already talked about, I'm a planner generally. I also really love checking things off my to-do list. And so planning a meal and then having a meal and a recipe that I can follow, that suits me really well. I also just love looking at cookbooks. And so on a Saturday morning with a cup of coffee, I will sit and look through our cookbooks. And that, again, is something that I know brings me a little bit of peace, often, to be honest, I'm not necessarily using a recipe from one of those cookbooks, but it might spark an idea. Or if I have food that I know is in the fridge I need to use up, I can go to a cookbook specifically looking for some kind of recipe or idea that I can use up that fresh food. These next few things that I want to talk about, which are the things that I consider when I'm meal planning. Some of these ideas came as I was putting together this book, and they came to me by talking to my friends about how they meal plan. And one of the things that was most incredible to me in that process is how differently we all did it. And I should know, of course, that we all handle this differently. We all have different constraints, different careers, different, days that we're working, different numbers of kids, different ages of kids, husbands who have different time constraints. We have different hobbies. I mean, you name it, right? We go about our lives with different inputs and outputs. But one of the things I learned from a friend of mine, the very first thing she does when she is sitting down to make a meal plan for the week is she looks at her calendar. She looks at her calendar to see what activities not only she and her family may have in the after school to dinner time period or the evening period to make sure that she's not planning some really complex meal on a night when they have to be in 3 different places, but she actually looks at what she has going on at work that day. She's a teacher. And if she has difficult classes, or she's teaching a difficult topic and there's a faculty meeting and there's a pep rally, she knows at the end of that day, she is going to be exhausted. And so she plans her meals accordingly. And I have to tell you, when I started doing this, it has been a true game changer for me because it has given me permission to simplify our family's meals and my meal planning routine and what is happening at the end of the day, and give myself permission to do it differently and to use nights that are coming at the end of a very long day to do something like eating leftovers or simply putting out a charcuterie or a vegetable board or getting takeout or eating out, and to, again, use those nights very specifically to make sure that I have the energy I need throughout the day and that I am not putting myself in a position of needing to fail at planning some meal that's overly complicated. So before you think about what you might want to make on Monday, look at what you have going on Monday. Look at the evening activities, look at the rest of your day and think, how might I feel at the end of this day? And do I want to make something that is new and complex and potentially complicated? And I, put candles on the table and I bring everybody together for a lovely meal? Or am I going to be trying to fit dinner in a 15-minute period between activity A and B and C? And see if this helps make your evenings a little bit smoother. The next thing I tend to do if I'm really either struggling for ideas or not really sure is I tend to think in broad meal categories. Taco Tuesday is a perfect example. Knowing that Tuesdays are taco night or Italian night, or pasta night, or whatever kind of broad meal category it is you might be thinking about, it does two things. One, it narrows the field that you need to consider. And actually, sometimes that can increase your creativity a little bit. If you know you're going to make pasta, I'm always making this kind of pasta. It gives you an opportunity to look for different flavors, flavor combinations, ingredients. And so it might actually spark some creativity, but it also makes sure that if you were always doing that in a given week or a given day on a given week, then you can always count on needing certain staples in your pantry. And as you practice making those foods week over week, you will get better at it and it will come a little bit more easily. And that in turn will help to reduce stress. So consider your evening activities and think, if you can, in broader meal categories. All right. Number 3 in my what do I consider well meal planning? When I have an idea about something I'd like to make, what can I double? And what could serve as either lunch or be reused in another dinner another night? You are already going to be spending time in the kitchen. Help yourself out by doubling a batch of something. Obviously, soups are a great example of items that can be doubled, but you could double sauces, you could double dips, I double rice all of the time because we'll use rice one night at dinner and it will keep. And then I will make quick and easy in the morning a fried rice for the kids to take to school. So think about how you can, when you're already spending time cooking, double or pre-make some items that can save you time later in the week. Similarly, what can you make ahead? Often on the weekend, I have more time to cook and I like being in the kitchen and I like cooking with my youngest. And so I will consider items that I can make ahead. I have a cookbook that I love for this. There may be others out there. In fact, if you have others that do this, I would love to hear about it because I go back to this one all the time and I'd love to expand the number of books I have that I could refer to. The two editors of Food 52 have a cookbook called A New Way to Dinner. And this cookbook has, each of them have 4 weeks they prepare for 4 seasons, for all 4 seasons of the year. So Amanda and Meryl both give you 4 full week meals, and they walk you through step by step how to prepare that full week's menu on Saturday. Step by step. While this is cooking, you make this. While this is going on, you do this. It talks to you about how to store all of those. And then day by day, it says when you get home or when you're ready to eat, you pull out X, you reheat Y. And it again walks you step by step through that process. And it is remarkable. And if you have time ahead or are the kind of person that has a bunch of time on one day to prepare, this can be really helpful. And you can look for recipes that can make use of prepared or partially prepared ingredients. I also, honestly, virtually weekly these days will buy a rotisserie chicken at the grocery store because that can serve so many different purposes during the week. And again, it's something that is made ahead of time and it's actually made for me, so I don't have to do it, but I can use it in recipes throughout the week. All right, my last tip here for what I do when I am considering and in the process of making my meal planning is I leave at least a day either with nothing on it or a day that I have takeout written or restaurant, go out to eat written. And what that does for me is it allows me the space to have made a mistake during the week in anticipating how tired I might be or how busy we might be. And to say, you know what, I thought I was going to do this tonight. I don't have time. I don't have the energy. So I'm going to take my flex night, my eat out night, my frozen pizza night, and I am going to do that tonight. And I am going to move this meal that I had planned for Tuesday over here to Thursday because I simply can't make it happen tonight. And by having that plan built in, I feel comfortable. I feel like less of a failure, frankly, for not getting it together tonight because I have a plan that I can fall back on. And I don't feel stuck in that moment for what to do. Again, because I kind of have plan B. Consider your evening's activities, use broad meal categories, double ingredients where possible. And if not double, then see what you can make ahead of time and make use of prepared foods, something like a rotisserie chicken, if you are a carnivore, and leave space for either takeout or for there to be flexibility and for you to move things around and for you to have made a miscalculation in what your energy or your family's energy might be for that day. That's what I've got for you. Again, that is all detailed in this menu planner. So this is a 52-week menu planner. I am not trying to sell it to you. I will send it to you if you'd like to try it. Don't even buy it. This is what the weekly meal plan looks like. And I know it's backwards for you all. I'm sorry. But you can see one of the things that it does is it gives you notes. And that is where every day I will put what our evening's activities are. And having this hang on the fridge is super helpful too. My whole family knows, oh, Eleanor has dance and Alice has acting and play rehearsal and Dad has a late meeting. It's super helpful to have it all in one place. also has a grocery list. This is detachable. It folds and it's detachable. But this, as long as I have you all here, I'm going to tell you about my favorite part of all of this. This came from a different friend one year. This is years ago. I've been doing this for years. Saw him at the grocery store and he had a printed out list. And I said, what is that you have right there? Can I see it? And he had printed out a list of all of the things that they tend to get at the grocery store, the most common things they get, organized by grocery aisle. This is next level type A. I mean, I loved it. Organized by grocery aisle. And what he would do every week is circle the items that they wanted, that they needed, cross out the ones that he didn't, and there was always space left for those others. And so in this meal planner, I also have a list. And again, sorry, I know it's backward, of all of those items that you might need or want. And so you can check them off, right? If you need them, cross them off if you don't. If they're not on the list, you can add them over here. And I love going through the grocery store with this. And it makes meal planning, it makes my grocery shop making, my list making so much easier. Okay. Last thing I have to admit to you all here. I haven't used either of these, the weekly meal planner, that, that template, or my grocery shopping template, in about, well, since school has been out. So 2 months, I have not done that. So even though I am a planner, and even though I love crossing things off a list, and even though I am so type A that I like having a printed out grocery shopping list that I can take with me every week to the grocery store, and I'm not having to write everything down, there are seasons to all of this, even for me. And lately, I have not been doing that because, well, I think frankly, I've needed a break from it. There is so much that's so regimented for us during the school year that during the summer, I've let it be a little bit more loosey-goosey. And sometimes that feels okay. And I am looking forward. School for my 3 kiddos starts next week. Next Wednesday is the first day of school. And I'm looking forward to getting back into this routine a little bit, because I know that our days are going to be crazy again. And this is going to help bring me a little bit of peace. So I hope there is something useful in here. Please leave a comment below. I want to know all about your secrets for meal planning, or if you are not a meal planner, I want to know what it's like when you get home at the end of the day or you approach dinner time. I want to know what that's like for you. I find it fascinating to have these kinds of conversations. And if you are willing to come on and talk to me about it, I would love to do that too. So that's all I've got for you. Next week, I promise we'll get this all sorted and our Flawsome calls will be on track for live interaction and Q&A. Thank you. Bye.